In this video, we're going to be looking at the hormones of the male reproductive system and examining their effects on the target tissues that they produce effects in. And the first of the male reproductive hormones that we're going to look at is one of the control hormones that's produced by the hypothalamus. It's called gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH for short. It's produced by the hypothalamus, and the target for it is the pituitary gland. And so when the pituitary gland senses GnRH in the fluids around it, then it will secrete and release two hormones into the bloodstream that are gonadotropins. These gonadotropins, they're called LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. And they're gonadotropins because they cause activity in the male gonads, in the testes. So that's why this hormone is called gonadotropin-releasing hormone, is because it stimulates the pituitary gland to release gonadotropins. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense now. Luteinizing hormone, LH, is one of the gonadotropins that's released in response to GnRH, and it comes from the pituitary gland. The target for LH are the interstitial cells of the testes. So the interstitial cells, when they notice that LH is in the fluids around them, then they secrete a hormone of their own, including or a set of hormones that are referred to as the androgens, and these are the male hormones. So testosterone is the primary male androgen. And so now we have like a series of steps, and so this gets confusing fairly quickly. So you got to kind of sit down and spend some time with this. But GnRH, released by the hypothalamus, causes the pituitary gland to secrete LH. LH then has activity at the interstitial cells of the testes and causes the secretion of testosterone into the body. So another name in males for LH, because it turns out that women will produce LH as well, but in males another name for LH is interstitial cell stimulating hormone. We are only going to use the term LH, though, in this class. So LH and luteinizing hormone, those are the terms that we'll use to describe this particular hormone. Okay, so now let's take a look at the other gonadotropin released by the pituitary gland. That's FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone. Now, the name is a little confusing because both LH and FSH are named for their activity in females. So these are hormones found in both women and men. But, so, you know, it's the same material, and they just carry the name based on the activity in the female body. But FSH in the male body, when it's released from the pituitary gland, it targets the sustentacular cells. So these are cells in the seminiferous tubule that help to control the growth of the sperm. And so in response to FSH, sustentacular cells are going to grow and mature and spread and become very responsive to testosterone. So testosterone is also going to target the sustentacular cells, and when it does, then it allows them to promote spermatogenesis among the spermatogenic cells. So sustentacular cells, they help to control spermatogenesis, and they are stimulated by follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, then we've got one last hormone that relates to the testes, and that's a hormone called inhibin. Inhibin, as its name sounds or suggests, is going to stop something. It's going to inhibit something. So it's produced by sustentacular cells. So FSH is targeting at sustentacular cells, As FSH targets them and they become active and secrete materials, inhibin is one of the things that they secrete. And so this is going to provide negative feedback back at the pituitary gland. So as FSH production increases, then what we're going to see is that inhibin production will increase and feed back on the pituitary gland. And in response, we'll see less FSH being produced. So as FSH is secreted, sustentacular cells become active, produce a lot of chemicals, including inhibin. The more FSH that's being secreted, the more inhibin the sustentacular cells will produce, and that will slow down the amount of FSH being produced. So that helps to, so if this is FSH increasing, inhibin causes it to come back down again, and then when it gets low enough, there'll be less inhibin, so FSH increases again. And so what we'll see then is over time, just this oscillation, very minute oscillations in the amount of FSH being, in the amount of FSH that is being produced by the pituitary gland. So inhibin, it targets the pituitary gland and slows down FSH production. All right, there's 4 hormones. Testosterone, of course, is another important hormone involved in the male reproductive system. It's the most important of those androgens. It's secreted by those interstitial cells in response to LH production in the body. Target cells are all over the body. And it turns out that very early in fetal development, there's a fair bit of testosterone running around in the little fetal body. And that is what guides the production of all of the male primary sex organs. So in response to testosterone in the fetal body, we see the production or the development of a penis from the erectile tissue, and dadgummit, I can't spell penis. Let's try that again. P-E-N-I-S. So we see the development of the penis from some primitive erectile tissues, and we see the development of the testes. But shortly after birth, we see almost complete cessation of any testosterone or secretion. Somewhere around the ages of 12 to 13, we see an increase in the secretion of testosterone, and that's what brings on puberty in males. So in order for testosterone to have any action, it is first converted into a compound called, here we are, called dihydrotestosterone, and then it will begin to be stimulatory to the cells of the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, and all the external sexual organs. And so at puberty, we'll see an increase in the size of all of these organs in response to testosterone. Any excess testosterone that's produced is modified in the liver and then secreted or excreted along with bile and in urine. Okay, so what are the actions then of testosterone? Well, as we said, during development, it's going to cause the formation of the male reproductive organs and the descent of the testes into the scrotum. And then after puberty, it will begin to stimulate spermatogenesis and promote maturation of sperm and cause the growth of and maintenance of the testes and the accessory organs of the reproductive system. And so, again, at puberty, we see a lot of testosterone being secreted and some fairly rapid growth and development of the male reproductive organs. Testosterone will also establish and maintain what are referred to as the secondary sexual characteristics. So if the primary sexual characteristics are all of the organs of the male reproductive system, testes and the scrotum, the penis, the prostate gland, the bulbourethral gland, all those glands, all of those are primary sex organs. The secondary sex characteristics then are what we think about that occur as part of puberty. So these include body hair, increased body hair, especially in the axillary regions, the armpits, and in the pubic areas, as well as on the arms and legs and back and chest and everywhere that we see body hair in men and on the face. It also promotes increased muscle mass and body size. So we see men become larger than women eventually as a result of testosterone, and have a tendency to have larger muscles than women as a result of testosterone. See enlargement in the larynx. Oops, dadgummit. I'm sorry, guys. There we are. Enlargement of the larynx as well, and that's what contributes to the deeper voices that we men have, because the larynx is larger and the vocal folds are longer. And then the sort of the characteristic shape that we associate with the male body. Broad shoulders, thicker and stronger bones, and relative to the shoulders, a relatively narrow waist. It also acts as a stimulant to metabolism throughout the body. And remember when we talked about the blood, it also causes increases in red blood cell production because it helps to stimulate erythropoietin production. And then it also influences sexual drive and related sexual behaviors. And we know that increased testosterone also tends to increase aggressive behaviors in males too. So lots and lots of actions when we think about testosterone and its effects in the body. Testosterone production is tightly regulated through negative feedback. So as the testes increase testosterone production, in response we see inhibition at the hypothalamus and less GnRH being produced. So testosterone production is rising, but as soon as we reduce GnRH production, we're going to have less LH secretion, and that's going to cause reductions in testosterone production by the interstitial cells. It'll fall again. As it decreases, then we see the release of that inhibition up at the hypothalamus. More GnRH is produced. That causes increased LH production, which then sees an increase in testosterone production once again. So over time, we see, this sine wave, this fluctuations, but very tightly controlled fluctuations in testosterone production in the body. Okay, let's see.